you've ever wanted to swing from building to building without worrying about running out of spider goop, then this week's game is for you. Today we're playing Bionic Commando, until we win. While many people know that Bionic Commando was a popular NES game, not many people know that the game itself started life out as an arcade game in 1987. While the NES and arcade games differ greatly, they share many of the same qualities. Specifically, in order to get around obstacles, you gotta use your bionic arm to swing around them. Both games are unique in the fact that they're platformers, but you can't jump, only swing. A mechanic that many gamers found fun at the time, but endlessly frustrating. There are actually a couple of versions of this entire series. In the US, it's known as Bionic Commando, but in Japan, it's actually called Top Secret, with the Famicom version being called The Resurrection of Hitler Top Secret. Now, I'm going to be using the US version of the game, Bionic Commando, for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's a game I played as a kid. Number two, it's a little less difficult than the Famicom version, but not by much. And number three, I can actually read the text, and I think that's the most important reason. In the game, you play as Rad Spencer, although technically this early in the series they call him Lad. A soldier equipped with a bionic arm that lets him swing from rooftop to rooftop like Spider-Man, or if you're as clumsy as I am, he'll just fall to his death. Your mission is to save Super Joe, the character from the first Commando game. He was captured by the Bads, aka Nazis, and is apparently so important that the military decided to use a highly sophisticated and expensive super soldier to go get him. Personally, I just think they wanted to test out their new super soldier at Joe's expense. But political cynicism aside, this game is dead simple. You move forward, you move backwards, you shoot your gun, you use your arm to swing around. There's really not that much to talk about. The game isn't difficult to figure out, but it is damn hard to master. Generally, you either go right, up, or down until you reach the end of a stage, at which point you'll fight a boss. Getting to the bosses, however, can be a bit tricky, but I've got some tips that are going to help you stay alive. I think the most obvious tip I can give you is to learn how your arm works, and learn it fast. The arm can be extended forward, up, and diagonally. When you're hooked onto something, pressing B will release the arm, while pressing up will cause Rad to climb up. Physics are at play in this game as well. While Rad does the normal fall down like a brick routine if you walk off an edge, if you release your bionic arm's grip while swinging, your fall will arc in that direction, helping you reach those almost unreachable platforms. Now, we'll talk about the weapons later, but once you get the rocket launcher, there's really no reason to use any other weapon, except in one of the later levels where the game forces you to use a three-way flamethrower. The enemies can be challenging if you don't know what you're doing. For the most part, they can be killed easily, but some enemies can cause you problems. Generally, if they fire a weapon, you can simply duck under their bullets, and if they throw things at you, then you can use your arm to climb to safety. Remember to bring the right communicator with you, otherwise you'll be frustrated halfway into a level when all you hear on the radio is ga ga ga. I remember seeing that as a kid and wondering why I was listening to Sting. Now, if you did bring the wrong communicator with you, then in most of the levels you won't be able to access the boss, so going through the rest of the stage really isn't worth your time. To quickly evacuate a level, simply press A, B, and start together, and you'll go back to the main map. Beating the game doesn't require that you go through every level on the main map, but it sure does help. You'll find different power-ups that'll help you along the way. One of the things that always frustrated me as a kid was not knowing how to activate items, like the flares that help you see in level 4. Just press start and all your darkness problems will clear up. Now, I never knew this as a kid, but you can actually get health in this game. I mean, who knew, right? If you collect enough bullet canisters to level up, yeah, there are levels in this game, you'll actually get 1 extra unit of health with a maximum of 8. To see how many bullet canisters you need to collect, just press select and look at the number on the bottom right corner of the screen. This game has a ton of items and weapons, but you only need 1 item, 4 weapons, and honestly, you're only going to use 2 weapons most of the game. Now, you start off with the normal gun, which, hey, that's weapon number 1. You can get the rocket launcher and the flamethrower, which lets you advance past certain levels. You're also going to get the hyper bazooka at the end of level 12, but that's kind of getting ahead of myself. The normal gun is just that, your regular gun. You can have 2 bullets on screen at the same time, and it does minimal damage. 1 shot with this gun will take down the normal soldiers, but other bad guys will take 3, 5, and sometimes even 10 shots just to take down. The rocket launcher is by far one of the best weapons in the game. You get it after beating Area 5. It can only shoot one rocket at a time, but it packs a hell of a punch, killing most enemies in one shot, and then going through the enemies to kill any enemies behind them. It's very useful in the later stages when you've got a large group of soldiers harassing you, or a very powerful boss standing in your way. You also need the rocket launcher in one level to blast down a wall to advance to the rest of the stage. The flamethrower, which you'll get for beating Area 9, is pretty useless, but you're forced to use it in one area because you need to, again, knock down a wall to advance. Although I don't know why the rocket launcher wouldn't work just as well, but hey, I'm sure the developers had their reasons. Finally, the Hyper Bazooka is only used once, at the end of Stage 12. We'll get to that later. Well, those are the weapons, but what are you going to use all the bullets on? The enemies, of course. The soldiers are a group of enemies that can be taken out easily with 1 or 3 hits from your weapon. The basic soldier just charges at you hoping to hit you and never really fires their weapons. The gunners and heavy soldiers do fire weapons at you, with the latter inflicting more damage with their heavy bazookas and bombs. Speaking of which, bomb-throwing soldiers are a bit of a pain, although I think they were kind of going for grenades. They literally throw the cartoon-style black bombs at you, and when they explode, you die. The throwing soldiers will literally throw spiked balls at you, which you have to dodge in order to advance. They're only found in Area 6, but they're damn annoying. Finally, the wired soldiers are a pain. I hate these guys. Basically, they're equipped with a bionic backpack that's permanently attached to the ceiling, which means you can't swing past them. They can also dodge your bullets by pulling themselves up to the ceiling. There's only one way to beat these guys: great timing. Now, there are other enemies in the game, but they're few and far between. For the most part, all you need is one shot to take those bad guys down. Now, Bionic Commando has several modes of gameplay. On the map screen, you're in a helicopter which you use to travel to various areas. Areas with red lettering on a white background are hostile, and white lettering on a red background indicates a neutral zone, where you're not allowed to fire your gun, but you can still use the bionic arm. You'll see several green trucks on the screen, and anytime your helicopter comes in contact with them, you'll face off against the enemies in a top-down style shooter. These stages aren't too complicated. As long as you take your time and you're careful about where you stand, you should be alright. The most prominent mode is the platforming action. In these sections, you've got to find a communication room in order to get in touch with your allies. Talking to them will open the boss door later in the level. You're also given the option to wiretap, which lets you listen in on a snippet of enemy communication. While you don't really need to pay attention to any of these cutscenes, keep in mind that they'll often give you clues as to how you're supposed to get past an area, or where a crucial item or weapon can be found. Now, if you're confused about how the communicators work, let me simplify it for you. Red, Alpha, is used in areas 1, 4, and 5. You start the game with this communicator. Green, Beta, is used in 2, 3, and 6, and you get it in Area 16. Blue, Gamma, is used in 7, 8, and 9, and can be found in Area 14. Orange, Delta, is used in 10, 11, and 12, and can be found in Area 15. The platforming sections provide a number of hazards that you need to look out for. The elevators, while generally not a problem, can suddenly fall to the ground, killing you instantly. Spikes on the ground are generally never a good sign in a Nintendo game, and Bionic Commando is no exception. These spikes will deal major damage to you and generally kill you. Of course, there are also the instant death pits in this game, because it wouldn't be an NES game without them. Avoid falling down them at all costs. Finally, there's the ever-present dangers of NES water. Either you can't swim, or your bionic arm makes you too heavy to be buoyant. Whatever the case may be, falling in water will kill you. As a kid, getting through this game used to give me nightmares because I never knew where to go or what to do or how to get certain items. Well, it turns out that the game is amazingly simple once you figure out what you have to do. Almost every area in this game does not require that you have a special item. In fact, the only areas where you absolutely need a special item are 4, 6, 7, 14, and 18. Area 4 requires that you have the flares, which can be found in the second room of Neutral Zone 13. Area 6 requires the rocket launcher, which you get after beating Area 5. Area 7 requires the flamethrower, which is the reward for beating Area 9. Finally, both Areas 14 and 18 require that you have the permit, which you get for beating Area 6. Alright, I guess I've been putting this off long enough. We need to talk about the bosses. Now, there is a good thing about the bosses in that you don't actually have to kill them so much as the supercomputer that they're protecting. Some of them, however, can be difficult. The main boss you're going to run into are the platoons, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, with each one getting progressively more difficult. They're really not that much of a problem to deal with, but they can have the little hang-ups. With each platoon, they add another type of soldier to the mix. The first platoon just has soldiers jumping into the screen. Each soldier dies with just one shot, while the platoon commander takes 3 shots to take down. The second platoon adds more soldiers to the mix, which adds the occasional extra bullet on screen. Again, take care of the commander and just be wary of the enemies and bullets. You should be okay. The third platoon adds the use of a soldier carrying a shield. Just jump behind him to take him out. Fourth platoon adds the heavy soldier, which adds grenades to the mess of enemies on screen. Fifth platoon uses laser cannons mounted on the ceiling. Again, the platoons aren't that difficult. Just take out the commander and destroy the supercomputer. Watch out for the bullets, you'll be fine. The next boss you'll run into is the Bearded Soldier. He's got a gun, a shield, and a bionic claw coming out of his back. He's a bit more difficult than the other soldiers because he can use that claw to knock you backwards, and taking out the computer he's protecting can be difficult because that claw can keep you from getting close. The only way to take him out is either to just ignore him and shoot the main computer as many times as you can, or kill him and then take out the computer. PPP, I don't know what else to call him, could be a problem. But all you really need to do is take him out from behind. He's completely helpless from back there. Otherwise, you can just dodge his 3-way bullets while attacking him. A few shots from your gun or rocket launcher, and down goes PPP, leaving you to take out the main computer. The next boss, the Wired Gunner, is the second most difficult boss in the game. He has a rocket launcher and a 3-way bionic claw. He can shoot it straight up, keep you from getting behind him, diagonally forward, knocking you back, and he can even shoot the claw straight ahead, grabbing you and pulling you in, causing some damage. Beating the Wired Gunner is tricky. You need to be in the right spot, grapple up, and drop down. On the way down, you need to time your shot just right so you hit him in the black visor area with your gun, and the other area will just harmlessly bounce off of him. Now I'm going to stop here and warn you, the last boss is insane. In fact, getting to the last boss can be a trip and a half. Levels 10, 11, and 12 are possibly the hardest platforming levels in the entire game. Your prowess is going to be put to the test. Oh, you don't believe me? Well, here's a sample of what you're going to go through when you try to get through those 3 levels. And if that's not enough for you, you've got to take out 2 power stations as well as face off against 3 bosses in this level. Yeah, this game gets you in a chokehold and refuses to let go until you start punching yourself in the nuts. In the power stations, you don't really have to worry about anything other than just blowing up the reactors. But the bosses you'll face include the 3 toughest bosses in the game: the Bearded Soldier, Wired Gunner, and the Albatross. Now, you've already faced the Soldier and the Gunner, but you haven't faced the Albatross. Let me tell you something about this thing. I hate it. I really hate it. I mean, consider the situation you're in. You're on the last level of the game, a game that gives you almost no one-ups. There are very few scattered through the levels, and if you don't know the continue trick, you're screwed. You're going back to the beginning of the game. But man, this thing is a beast. The only way to hurt it is to attack its exposed reactor core at the top of the machine. Well, this would be a terrible design in reality, since you just use a helicopter to nuke it out of the sky. This is Bionic Commando, where you get to climb up to the top with your bionic arm, shoot at the reactor maybe once, try it all again. Oh yeah, you're gonna die. A lot. Finally, after all of that garbage, you meet up with Hal, who apparently has this ultimate bazooka for you. The idea is that you're supposed to jump down from a ledge and shoot the cockpit of a helicopter, and if you miss, you're dead. So after going through this level for the 20 billionth time and finally managing to shoot the cockpit of the helicopter, what's your reward? This. An awesome image of Hitler's head exploding! How did that make it past the censors? Anyway, you fought through the game, beat the hardest boss there is, and made Hitler's head explode. It's the end of the game, right? No! Now you've got to get out of the stage in under 60 seconds, otherwise the base will explode. Or explode, as the text says. Anyway, you just need to climb up really fast and not worry about dicking around with the platforms. There's another wired gunner halfway up, but just avoid him and keep climbing. You'll run out of time if you try to kill him. Keep climbing, and eventually... I have to admit, with some of the crappiest endings for these hard games, Bionic Commandos is actually pretty cool. Well, have a happy holidays and we'll see you next week on Until We Win.